what's up and welcome back to Interpreting the Scares. That's right, we're back at it with this month's daily journey through the nightmares with a true nightmare of a film, and not in a good way. It's Exorcist, the beginning. So, in this first prequel to The Exorcist, Father Merrin is off in Egypt and he's on a mission. You see, they've discovered an ancient church buried underneath the earth that holds a dark and demented history. And the moment that he steps inside, that is when the nightmare begins. So right before seeing this film, I had absolutely no idea that it was a story that they did twice. There's two Exorcist prequels. There's this film, and then a year later, in 2005, they came out with Dominion, prequel to The Exorcist. And it's literally the same exact story, and from what I understand, they actually made and completed Dominion first. And the studio was like, oh man, I think that's gonna flop, so let's just redo it, start over from the top, and that's what this movie is. And when this flopped, they were like, screw it, and then they released the original one anyway. Now, I cannot say if that's better than this or not, but it better be, because this was rough, and this was an absolute chore to get through. I can honestly say that I felt like I spent 4 days trying to finish this movie. Funny thing is, most people say one of the worst horror sequels ever made was Heretic, Exorcist 2. I mean, and yeah, you know, that may still be the case here, because technically this movie is mostly well made. Very good cinematography, interesting visuals in certain scenes, the performances as a whole were pretty solid. You know, I never had a problem with most of the technical aspects, save for some of the CGI, which were kind of obvious if we're being honest, but as a whole, the film should be fine. Heck, even the premise of the film, an excavation team that finds a hidden church underneath the land that an archaeologist has to investigate. That's some Indiana Jones stuff right there, and I love that. That premise alone is very intriguing, and I hope it holds more weight in Dominion, because here I just didn't care with the way that it was presented. The best way that I can describe this film is kind of like a Michael Bay joint, where there's a lot of stuff happening on screen that should be absolutely captivating, but it just ends up being monotonous and boring as all heck. Instead of explosions and action scenes, this Exorcist film tries very hard to just throw scary things at you, or at least things that should be scary rather. They aren't. Honestly, if I saw this thing in the theater, I'd probably just want to walk out. If I wasn't doing this interpreting the scares thing, I definitely would have shut off the movie, because I can't think of a single moment in the film that's really good. I mean, at the very most, it has promise in the premise, but it's just a failure on almost every other front for me, because I really did want to claw my eyes out. Hey, maybe I was just possessed by a demon. Overall, let's just get this over with and talk about my final score. From a technical, unbiased perspective, like I said, there's things in it that aren't bad, just from a completely shallow perspective. So, cinematography was decent, some visuals worked, others didn't. The performances were all pretty decent, and the premise was promising, even if it wasn't executed very well. This score is 62%. My bias score is a little bit lower than that, because while I do see the promise that's hidden under the surface, and I do appreciate certain things in terms of cinematography, I also know that it's one of the most boring movies I've ever seen, and I really don't ever want to see it again. This score is 52%. When we combine the two scores together, we come to the final rating of 57%. 57 out of 100 possible stars, or a C- letter grade. Guys, let me know if you've seen Exorcist the Beginning, what you thought about it, and how you compare it to something like Dominion if you saw that. Let me know, and as for YouTube, you guys know what to do. Hit that like, subscribe button, and bell to be notified when I come out with my next review. And until then, peace out!
Dave examines movies we just watch for fun. Davey is the expert, he is the #1 critic that I go to when I need a movie.